This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. What's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm Charli McConnell, your host. Today we have Kathy Maxwell on, and I'm so excited to talk about gut health. She's a gut health holistic practitioner who helps people connect back to their body and feel good living without limits. She spent over 15 years as a critical care nurse. So naturally, when she found herself navigating her own health journey, she went to doctors and specialists and she found zero answers. 6+ years later, she eventually found her answers through functional testing. And this left Kathy inspired to go back to school to learn how to help others get to the root of their health. And now Kathy owns her own holistic health practice where she empowers her clients by sharing tools and answers for their true health and redefining their wellness. Kathy, welcome to the Hype Squad. I'm so happy you're here.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was telling Kathy before we hit record, I could talk for a ridiculous amount of time about gut health. And it occurred to me that this is not the norm. Like a lot of people don't even think about gut health. They just walk around feeling like crap all the time and don't understand why. And so I thought it would be really cool for us to dig in. I mean, we could talk forever, but we'll try to make it short, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, obviously I find it super interesting, but the more I learn, the more just how it affects everything, every single thing. It's hard to find a disease or a condition or an illness that doesn't go back to the gut in one way or another. So it's pretty important.
It's so important. And I'll give you a little bit of background too, Kathy. I am also an RN, but I worked in labor and delivery. So different backgrounds as far as bedside nursing. But when it became really, really clear to me is my daughter was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was 2. And that was about 5 years ago at this point. And at the very beginning of our journey, trying to figure out what her triggers were, what made it, flare up, if she had any. And the biggest thing that we realized, it took a while, but it was constipation. And I
Mhm.
remembered in nursing classes, they would talk about, if your patients who had any sort of dementia or brain fog would get worse with constipation, it would build up. What is it that built the acid of some sort? What is it that builds up in the brain that makes them get confused when you're constipated?
Well, there's so many toxins related to that. So it's hard to like name one, but there's a lot. And if you don't have that elimination pathway that's crucial for those toxins to be, outside the body and not recirculating, then you're gonna have some problems.
Yeah. Well, I
So
knew that from nursing school, but then to see it happen with my daughter and how serious it became to keep her constantly moving and hydrated and eating enough fiber and so on and so forth. So it got a lot closer to home in that aspect. But before we go, like I said, I could go on a soapbox, but before we go too far down this road, tell me about how this showed up for you, how you got into it. What was your journey like?
Well, I think for me personally, it began because I've thought a lot about this. Like, when did this really start? Because I think the body shows us symptoms, right? That we call them symptoms, but they're really messages, right? Um, that we just don't know the language. We don't know how to translate them. But it's our body telling us that there's something wrong. There's something not the way it should be. And so being able to translate those messages is what I do now. But mine really started after I had my daughter, which she's 15 now. You hear about postpartum like hair loss and things like that, but mine just never really stopped. Like my hair loss just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I ended up losing like when it was at its worst, like half of my hair was gone. Like my ponytail was like half the size that it was prior. And I know that's like a superficial thing, like hair, but it was a big deal to me. And of course, it wasn't just the hair, right? It started off, that's the first thing that I really noticed, but it was my skin had massive like cystic acne for a long time that had
Wow.
just, it would kind of go in cycles where I feel like it would get better, but then it would just come back. And I mean, I tried everything. I went elimination diets. I tried, veganism, all the different crazy diet trends. Like I did all the things, and nothing really helped. I knew that I had in my mind like dairy sensitivities, which um, I was able to eliminate that and learn to live great without dairy. Um, but later learned that, that's not something I have to do either. That's just another message from my body. I don't have like a food allergy, and I'm able to eat dairy now just fine, which is a beautiful thing. But anyways, so I had those symptoms. Let's see, I had, of course, like bloating with, to me, it was unpredictable. I couldn't figure out what the connection was with what foods. Um, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had severe brain fog. When you have it for so long, you don't even know you have it because of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's that kind of thing. There's just a lot of like hormonal type symptoms for me. Of course, the GI stuff. And I had low energy. Like my energy, I just thought it was because I was a mom of 3 kids and full-time nurse and, doing all the things. But it was like really severe. Because once I started feeling better, I was just like, is this the way I'm supposed to be feeling this whole time? Like, wow, like who needs drugs?
Right.
Anything, just feeling good and normal. So yeah, all those symptoms for me were really over like a 6 to 7 year period of building and just adding. By the end, it was like, I mean, you're a nurse, you understand, like you're thinking, okay, oh my gosh, I have this body system and this body system, like they're all breaking. I'm really sick, and I went to all the
Mm-hmm.
doctors, all the specialists, and they were all like, you're really good. Like everything is great. Are you sure it's not in your head? And I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
uh, no, no, it's not in my head. But you get to a point where you're like, there's nothing else I can do. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of gave up until my daughter had her own stuff. And of course, when your child has something, that's a whole different story. There's no giving up. You're not taking no for an answer. Ironically, one of the things for her was also dairy, which that's another story. But anyways, that's how I happened upon the functional testing was through her journey because I had essentially kind of given up on myself. And then that's when I found those and did them with her to show her because at the time she was 5. So I wanted to show her that it was okay and like, I'll do it with you. And then it's like, hold on. These are answers that I've been like, what?
I feel
It was,
good. Why do I feel so good?
it blew my mind. But anyways, yeah, kind of like a backstory a little bit.
I love that. So I did an episode about like getting rid of dairy and like just paying attention to the foods that you eat and all that kind of stuff. Because I started eliminating dairy and I just say it's an allergy. It's not, it's just a sensitivity, but it's a lot easier just to like, okay, yeah, I'll die if I have it. Please don't give it to me type of thing. Right.
Simplifies it when you're
Um,
out.
yeah, but I've said to people before, and maybe I said it on that episode too, but I just did not realize how bad I actually felt, except for I fell for every little bit of marketing that was like, lower your inflammation or feel better and have more energy. I was like, yes, yes, give me all of those things because I don't feel good. I'm tired. My body hurts. I don't understand why. And I've been dairy free for a couple of years now. And to go back and compare to like summers, I hated summers because something about the heat made it so much worse for me. My joints hurt. The clothes on my body felt like not necessarily tight, but almost like suffocating, right? And I didn't understand. And it was my body basically saying like, hello, pay attention to me, something's happening. And then when I eliminated that, then I realized like olive oil affected me negatively. And it went from there, right? But I had to start somewhere. And so I feel like most people have some kind of story to tell where it's like, oh, okay, I learned my body. I'm not like everybody else. I'm not cookie cutter. The doctor didn't know what was wrong with me. Not everyone has that story, right? But some people do. Um, and I was telling you before we started recording, I have like a whole list of questions. And the things I wanted to go over specifically were the symptoms that you had listed on your website because I'm like, oh my God, so many people are like, yes, yes, yes. And they were bloated, skin issues, acne, psoriasis, IBS, autoimmune, constipation and fatigue, like just to name a couple. But those are like common things that I I know somebody that fits all of these things, right? So, what's your take on that? What are the most common things that you see for clients that work with you that they're trying to shift?
I think the coolest part, a lot of people come to me when it's obvious gut things that are presenting, whether it's the food sensitivity thing that they're trying to figure out, whether it's like the bloating and like, I mean, nobody likes to have that, pressure filled, huge looking stomach, right?
Right.
Usually those type of things are the reasons they come to me. But the beautiful thing is so often some of the most common issues that get resolved through the process are more of the mental things or the skin things, like anxiety and depression. That's like a big piece of stuff, and so many people deal with that for 20 years or something, thinking that that's a part of their identity, like that's just the way I am, right? And no, it's not. It doesn't have to be. And so that's one of my favorite parts, is being able to help people, like, yes, we're going to balance your microbiome and we're going to do all this cool stuff. But also, like, we're going to really get back to the true you that doesn't have to be anxiety filled, right? It's truly joy of living. And it's a really cool thing to witness. It's truly my favorite part. And
I
it's so
bet.
like crazy often, that anxiety piece, that skin thing, like all of it. It's really cool.
So I want to go a little bit deeper on those two things, specifically
Yeah.
anxiety and acne. We can start with acne because I feel like anxiety will be a much bigger topic, but acne. So, and skin too, like dry skin, psoriasis, stuff like that. But acne, for the ladies listening, especially like when you get to an age where you're like, I thought wrinkles were the only thing I needed to be concerned about, not acne. I'm grown. Like, going on? What are some of the common things that you see come up for people who are healing their gut and clearing their acne? What are the things that they're changing?
So a lot of times the way I usually do it, it's very custom. You know, I listen to what is going on with that specific client as far as what functional testing and labs that they need. And really it's more real information from those tests that we use with their symptom presentation to create the protocol for that balancing process. And so, you had mentioned before, being a sucker for all those marketing ads of like all these like different things that they say. And I mean, I've been there too. But that's really more of like taking a dart and trying to hit the goal at the end of the room, right? It's just guessing. And you
Yeah.
may come with some close answers. You may come up with some things and that moves you forward. But when you have these tests that literally give you that information that allows you to translate those messages of your body, those symptoms, right? To really know what your body is saying it needs. So you give your body that. And then also at the same time, simultaneously, you are able to, I do another test often where I get to see specific foods that your body is reacting to from an immune standpoint. Um, and so for the healing and rebalancing phase, it's like, okay, your body only has so much energy to expend in a 24 hours. If your body is constantly expending all this energy reacting to these groups of foods, that's not the root cause, but that is a symptom, and it is kind of obscuring your work towards like the end goal of like feeling amazing. So we remove those foods for that short period of time, not so that we just learn how to eat well without those foods forever, but for the interim. And then we reintroduce them. And at that point, your body can handle those foods and they're not reactionary any longer. And that is so fun.
So you're saying you eliminate it, you clear out, you basically do like a restart, and then you can reintroduce. So in that term, I could reintroduce dairy at some capacity as long as everything else is balanced out, potentially, right? I don't know if I'm going
Yes.
to risk it at this point, but potentially. And then you're not turning anything down. Nothing is off limits. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's not, nothing is off limits. I mean, you still don't want toxins and chemicals. And like for the test that I do, the food sensitivity testing, it's an immune mediated test. So it's a blood test that looks at what your immune system has tagged as invaders. So those foods are what are causing these symptoms, these messages, these and it doesn't have to be GI stuff. Back to those anxiousness and the skin things. Like our body can give us messages through those things too. But it's really knowing what they are, and it tests chemicals and things too, not just the foods, right? Because there's lots of food chemicals in our foods now. And so when it comes to reintroducing later on, it's not about, okay, now you can just have all those things again. It's you choosing. I mean, you get to lead the way. I'm just your guide. You choosing which things that you are important to you. And of course, I'm going to really like highly suggest the ones that are nutrient dense, right?
Right.
Not necessarily the red number 40,
Yeah.
like, because we can have reactions to those too. I mean, those are bad for everybody. Seed oil's bad for everybody. But if you have a specific reaction to those things, then that's going to make it even worse for you, right? Your susceptibility of things. And that's going to cause you to be more susceptible to other things. I know for me in my journey, like heavy metals played a part, mold played a part, like all these things, but those aren't root causes. You still have to go to, well, why? Why is my body doing this? In my case, why are my hormones acting crazy and imbalanced? Well, your hormones are mirrors, so that's not a root cause either, right? Mine were doing that because of some imbalances in the microbiome, which allowed all these overgrowths. I had low stomach acid production. My pancreatic enzyme output wasn't where it needed to be. All these things that are supposed to allow your body to absorb the nutrients from your food, and they're not able to do that. And the body is resilient. So you can function without the needed nutrients and fuel that your body needs for all these things. But then after a certain period of time, things are going to start to stop functioning optimally, right? And so that's kind of the way it works. So you gotta work on the absorption so that you can get the nutrients. And in order to do that, you gotta have those reactions not there. So does that make sense?
Kathy, I'm geeking out so hard because I'm
So
like,
good.
it's like a spider web, right? It's so complex and so individual. And like a question like I just asked could never be answered just as like a broad answer because it's so individualized. So instead of like digging into the anxiety part, because I know it's going to be a very similar type of thing, if I'm coming to you to work on healing my gut for whatever my symptoms are, what does that look like? How do I start with you? What are the things that we're testing? What does that look like?
Oh, like I said, it's really custom, which I think healthcare in general, it needs to and is moving in that direction of individualized healthcare. So that's a very important piece of this is that custom piece. So I would talk to you about, what are the symptoms that you're experiencing right now? What are your goals with that, right? And then based on that, what labs, which functional testing I would suggest that you take. And then the way that usually works generally, it's like a 6-month program. Sometimes it can be shorter than that. And that's from start to finish, right? The actual protocol part is really, it depends on what it is, but I really try to get protocols at a 12-week period. So that's 12 weeks of like, okay, I'm going to eliminate these reaction foods and I'm going to, rebalance whatever is imbalanced for these 12 weeks. And then we kind of go from there because we still have to reintroduce foods. And, there's a lot of lifestyle pieces. There's a lot of detox. There's a lot of, the stress component. So there's a lot of things involved in that. And then, some people have a higher need of the foundations, meaning they don't know how to go to the grocery store and shop and actually get real food, right? Because believe it or not, sadly, that's the truth of our reality is you go to the grocery store, 95% of the food in the grocery store is not real food.
Mm-hmm.
So learning how to really incorporate that, learning how to eliminate those foods. Oftentimes the reaction foods that come back are foods that you eat all the time, right? So having to learn how to do that in your life could be a challenge, right? Most of the time it is. So I help a lot of people with that part too. Meal like batch cooking. Some people really would find a lot of benefit to that piece because, lots of us are busy moms. Some of us have jobs, like being able to spend a little bit of time at the beginning of the week that serves you for the whole week is like a huge superpower,
Yeah.
right? So, it's really custom in what that person needs to fit their needs in their life according to their lab results.
Mm. So where are you? You're at the beach, right? Where are
I
you?
am.
30A or
Yeah, Santa Rosa Beach. Yeah.
okay. So, but if I wanted to work with you virtually, I could, right?
Oh, yeah. About
Okay.
half of them are virtual, half of them are local here. So yeah, totally do
I love
virtual.
that. That's awesome. Okay, so the thing that I've noticed, and I have clients, I have friends who are, anxious or they have IBS or they're bloated all the time or they're tired. And I have said to all of them at some point, like, what are you eating? Right? Like, are you going outside? Are you drinking water? Like, are you drinking too much caffeine? Stuff like that. I have found myself asking those questions and I almost feel like I'm overbearing sometimes. So I try to back up from there. But I have like this little funny thing I say. I'm like, you're not going to put unleaded in a Ferrari, right? You're not going to put shit fuel in a like luxury car. So if you're putting all of these like unleaded foods essentially in your body's going to feel like shit, right? And I can tell the difference too. And I brought up acne, if I eat a lot of sugar, I know I'm going to break out. And I almost have to like check myself before I eat something sweet. Like, okay, when I get these pimples in like 48 hours, you did this to yourself, right? This was not your hormones. This was not washing your face. It's because you ate all this candy, right? But what are some like real life tips you could give to people who aren't ready to like totally redo all the foods that they're eating in their lifestyle because it is a huge shift that you have to be ready for. It is not easy whatsoever. But what are some tips that you would give to people about things they could incorporate into their diet or potentially remove that could help them feel better for some of these common symptoms that you see?
Well, there's so many things I could say about that. Going back to the foundations, you could be eating all of the organic, locally grown, pasture raised, all the perfect foods for you, even according to your food sensitivity list. You could be doing an A+ job at all of that, but if you're not able to digest it and absorb it, then you're literally just pooping out expensive poop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all you're doing. It's not going to be getting anywhere that it needs to be. So, based on that, like really working on the foundations of sunlight is important. It's so important. I can't even tell you how many clients that have had whatever like just issue that won't go away after just one little thing like migraines or something, or they're not hungry in the morning, or that pooping thing, constipation, having elimination problems, but getting grounded on the grass first thing in the morning, 5 minutes, and that is the end up like answer to it all, right? It's that
Wow.
connection to nature. So that would be a really easy thing and free, and 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Hydration is a big thing, but it's not just plain water. It has to be mineralized water. So, you know, you hear a lot about electrolytes and all the things and the, trace minerals, and those are all super important. But in our water, like if you are just drinking a gallon of water every day, thinking that, oh, I'm hydrated, I'm doing, that's really not getting into the cell. I mean, you have to have the trace minerals in there, the electrolytes, to be able to absorb your cells to take in the water. And so one of my favorite things is to get like Celtic sea salt. It's not just sodium in that, right? There's potassium and magnesium and calcium. And so putting just the teeniest pinch of that salt in every time you fill up your water bottle or your water glass throughout the day, that's going to be a big, big thing. Let's see, movement is a huge one, and it doesn't have to be some big exercise. It's walking after a meal. Like that is a hack, right?
Mm.
Because it's your blood sugar regulation and your metabolism. Just simply walking, eating your meals outside, huge. There's studies that have been released that show where your blood sugar regulation, the glucose spike after a meal, you eat the same exact meal inside normally versus eating that same meal outside, and it's like between 20 and 30% different on that glucose spike. I mean, that's pretty insane.
Wow.
So these little tricks and things that you can kind of fit in to your day and according to your lifestyle as it is can really make a big impact. And then the last thing I'll say, which is the most important thing, and I know that it like invokes massive eye rolls, but it's the stress piece. It is just so important. It's so important. And it's not just the stress, like financial stress or, drama at work or, whatever that may be. That is not even what I'm talking about. It's identifying the stressors on the body that can be physical stress. It can be lack of sleep, right? Sleep is a big deal. Like I tell my clients, sleep like it's your job. Like pretend like that is one of your jobs. And how do you do that? Well, it depends on that person, right? But that's very important. It's not, I'll sleep when I'm dead. How many times have you heard that? It's not that really important. But the physical stress on the body from under eating. So many of us in this day and age, especially women, were a part of that, 90s, 2000 era where it's like, you have to count your calories and like you have to eat this little bit of food, and that chronic under eating, the massive damage that has done to here, but also the body, right? The nutrient piece, the absorption piece, the functionality of every body system is massive. And the stress that causes on those body functions and systems, it's just like cascade and snowballs. So it's a big stressor right there. So being able to like reprogram your mind to not see it's important to count the calories and be hungry all the time. Like that's a big one for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
stress of all
Yeah.
kinds.
Well, and I think mental stress too, like physical, absolutely. But it's such a hustle culture that we live in. Go, 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 be on your phone constantly, always available, always doing something, like sitting in stillness and quiet, unless you're trying to go to sleep, is like typically the only time people do that. Like they're constantly stimulated. And I find myself in that same pattern. I actually started reading books a lot recently because I can't multitask. It's not watching a show and scrolling my phone at the same time. I can't do anything else while I'm reading. I can only read. And so it's such a great way for me to just like shut everything out to the best that I can, right? But that is so much the culture that we're in, is and then the physical aspect too. I mean, yeah, the things are endless, but those were fantastic tips. The grounding, feet in the grass. I do that in between calls sometimes, well, as often as I can, just to like reset, go out, get in the sun, like just feel it on my face, and my feet on the ground are like laying on the ground. So I love that tip. The eating outside, I need to do that more for sure.
Yes,
For
you
sure.
should do it. I call it
Um,
the club,
you call it the what?
the eat outside club.
I
So
love it.
my Instagram, I'm always like posting pictures of me eating outside under the sun. It's like, you should try this. You should
Okay.
do it.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to tag you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to like hold myself accountable. The other thing I really wanted to make sure we talked about, Kathy, because I didn't mention this earlier, but I found out about Kathy through a mutual friend of ours, Cynthia Mitchell, who's been on the podcast before. And so I asked Cynthia, what should I ask her? What should I ask her? Tell me the topics. And she said, oh my God, you totally need to ask her about looking at your poop and what it can tell you and teach you and all this stuff. And so I like, obviously we're not going to go into like the entire, I'm sure there's so much we could learn from it, but I think a lot of people don't ever look at their poop. They have no idea what it looks like or what is healthy versus not. So give me your shorthand people who are like, oh, you want me to do what? Ease them
Right.
into this, I guess.
Okay. So listen, poop is normal. Everyone does it. But what's important to know, number one, is that you are supposed to be pooping 1 to 3 times every single day. Every day, 1 to 3 times every day. Not every other day, not
What?
every whatever, every single day, at least 1 to 3 times. Why? Well, it is your body's number one way of elimination. So we are constantly absorbing toxins, whether that's in the air, the water, the food, the personal care products, our makeup, lotions, soaps, detergents. I mean, everything, fragrance, it's all toxins and it has to get out some way. And so our liver has this huge responsibility of over 400 functions that gets burdened. And listen, if it's not doing it right, then, you're not able to excrete those toxins through the poop, through your sweat, through the lymph. Like there's so many pieces to it that are important. And if you're not getting the toxins out by pooping 1 to 3 times a day, then it's just recirculating all those toxins in your body that much. So it's really important. Once we kind of get into that, we can start talking about like what the consistency should be and all of that. And that's, going a little bit deeper. But I think starting with every single day, you have at least once. Hopefully, you can go up to 3. And you want it to be formed. You don't want it to be loose. You want it to be, easy, not hard. Feel complete when you're done, you know.
Yeah. Well, and hydration and fiber. I was telling a friend of mine not too long ago, she was constipated and she was asking me for tips. And I said, okay, well, how much water did you drink? And did you eat fiber? And it was kind of a conversation then about fiber and, asking what she ate. And I'm like, just eat an avocado a day or add something that has fiber in it that you like and just be consistent with it. Right.
Aloe
And
vera
it,
juice too. Have you ever had that? Aloe
aloe
vera?
vera juice.
Yeah.
I
I shoot
haven't.
it. So you can get it at like Whole Foods. I think you can get it at Publix too. But you just keep it in the fridge and you can shoot it. Like it's soothing to the, like if you have any like upper GI like discomforts, whether it's heartburn or something. Of course, it kind of soothes all that. It's very cool. But it will help that in a very gentle way. And so that's like an easy thing. I mean, I still take that most days just because of the other benefits of aloe vera, but it's definitely good for that. And it's a nice, gentle way to kind of ease in natural ways to boost your elimination pathway.
I love that. I love the tips. I'm gonna have to go back and listen and write all these down so I can remember everything. Um, oh my God, this has been so great, and I could keep going. Hopefully, you'll come back and we can talk more about different things. But I want to touch on your hype list. And if you haven't listened to the podcast or anyone listening today who's not heard one before, we do a hype list every episode, which is how we came up with the name The Hype Squad. And it's something I started doing with my coaching clients a while back, where you list out achievements and obstacles that you overcame in order to get there. And it's really just a way of celebrating and bragging about yourself, being full of yourself, celebrating all of those things. So I would love if you're willing to share an achievement from your hype list and an obstacle that you overcame.
Okay. So achievement wise, the first thing that comes to mind is really I have co-founded a nonprofit organization called Mind Body Saltwater, and it is like holds my heart. It's so beautiful. But I share it with my friend Stacy, and we really help women get um feel connected to themselves and hold the space for them to heal through transitions, like big life transitions and different types of grief. And it has just been it's been a challenging thing to achieve, but it's also been so incredibly rewarding. So I'm going to have to say that one. And what else? You said obstacle, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to say transitioning careers it was really hard. It was really hard, but being able to use all of that. I mean, I was a nurse for a lot of years and like 15, 16 years, and going from that like regular paycheck in that system of like where you have health insurance and all of that kind of stuff. And plus I did it for so long. I mean, I was really good at it.
Mm.
And climbed the ladder, and then to just feel so completely unaligned with that completely and being able to figure out how to lean more into what did align was really hard to navigate, but I did it, and I'm so happy that I did. And I see my kids seeing that piece, and it brings it brings emotion every time I think about it. I'm really proud.
I love that. Oh God, I love that. And you'll have to come on just to talk about uh, the things that you do with grief and the retreat and all of those, there's so much there that we could talk about. So that just opens up a whole other conversation. And yeah, the obstacle, I totally agree. I say it to a lot of people, if it were easy, everyone would do it. Like if you're challenged or if you're uncomfortable, it means you're in the right direction, right? You're going after what you're meant to go after. It's not supposed to be easy. It shouldn't be easy, right? Um, Thank you for sharing those. I appreciate that. And I'm so happy you were able to come on and do this, Kathy. You are always invited to come back. Anything we could talk about. I hope you come back soon. And thanks for getting hyped with me today. So anyone listening, thank you for coming and listening to Kathy and I getting hyped with us today. I hope you're all kind to yourselves today and every day. Bye.
Thank you.